and welcome to my workshop on public speaking anxiety. We're going to explore why public speaking anxiety happens, why do you struggle with it, and what can you do about it. So I hope you enjoy it. So today we're going to go through the difference between interpersonal and performance anxiety, the fear brain versus your logical brain, why do you experience performance anxiety in this way, and understanding your unique cycle and the next steps to take. Now, the first thing to say is that social anxieties tend to fall into two categories. They're both around the fear of judgment, but the first one is interpersonal anxiety, and that tends to be around unstructured social situations, like speaking with friends, going to a party, things like that. It's much more about the fear of coming across negatively because of a fear of not being accepted. Performance anxiety, on the other hand, is more about a fear around not coming across competent. So it also involves negative judgment, but there's that pressure of competence. There's that standard you need to live up to, or that standard you feel is expected of you. And public speaking comes into performance anxiety. Now, I hear this from my clients all the time. They know they logically shouldn't feel this way, but they do. And this question is really hitting on the dynamic between the two halves of the brain. So one of the main areas of the brain is the logical brain, also known as the prefrontal cortex. And it's really responsible for that rational thinking, slow, methodical thinking. And out of the moment in public speaking, the logical brain might be saying, why do I feel like this? It's just a presentation, or it's just a speech. Nothing's going to happen to me. And yes, that is logical. But the problem is, in the moment, we're not in the logical brain, we're in the fear brain. So this is a completely different part of your brain responsible for answering the question, am I safe or not? It is only concerned with your safety. It's not as nuanced, it's not as slow and methodical, it's actually lightning fast. And when we're in the moment, it can really hijack us where we can't think the way we normally would with our logical brain. And this is helpful. The fear brain evolved as an evolutionary way to keep us safe. So if you were being chased by a lion, you don't want your logical brain to really think, that's weird. Why is there a lion in the middle of my modern town? Who put him there? Should I run? Actually, can I outrun it? Do I have a weapon? All of these thoughts. It's too slow. The lion would have eaten you already. The fear brain would hijack us in this moment and either make us run, hide, or flee. There's no time for thinking. And let's say we then run all the way and it turns out it wasn't a lion, it was actually a really big dog. Well, it was better that the fear brain made us act anyway to avoid danger. Now, the problem is we don't get to choose what the fear brain reacts on. But the good news is we can retrain it to not activate on things we don't want it to, of which public speaking is one. So if you're someone that's really struggling with a strong anxiety response in public speaking, know that it's not your fault and know you can't logic your way out of it. So if you've tried positive thinking, repeating mantras, any of these things, you may not have found it that helpful, and that's not your fault. It's because it just doesn't really work with the fear brain, and that's what effective treatment will do. So let's begin to look a little bit at the cycle that happens that maintains public speaking anxiety. Now, I'm going to use an example, but you can think as we're going along about something that might be more applicable to you. So the situation is having to present KPI outcomes to a team at work in person. So I'm presenting to a group of people. And immediately I might think, what if I come across weird? They'll hear my voice shake. I'm going to mess up the meeting. They'll hear my mouth is dry. They'll see my hand shake and they'll hear my voice croak. So then I'm feeling anxious, fear, stressed, and maybe even frustrated and low because I don't want to feel this way and it's important to my career that I do this right. Then I'm having those physical anxiety symptoms of tense, shaky, and my heart beating. So then to try cope with this, I might try to constantly monitor myself, over-rehearse what to say before I say it, have water nearby so I can drink so I don't have to speak, and rush through anything I say, and I'm not hosting a Q&A. I don't want any uncertain Q&A. Now, a really important part of this is whilst we're going through this cycle, we also have something called a self-image. And this is almost like an image or a thought in your head of how you think other people are going to see you in this moment. So for some people, it really is like watching a film of themselves. And for other people, it's more a feeling or a thought. But I might have the image of myself tripping up on words, seeing myself at the front of the room, unable to pronounce KPI, images of my colleagues looking cringe and embarrassed for me, this seeing myself go red in front of a bunch of people and coming across incompetent. Now, for some people, these images are really clear, and for others, they might even be distorted. So you might have the idea that you're sort of as red as a brick when that can't physically really be possible, but it doesn't matter. That's what you're seeing anyway. Now, I've put arrows all across this cycle, and maybe pause the video here and just have a think about what they represent. So you might have got it, but don't worry if you didn't. It's that all the areas of this cycle interlink to maintain and perpetuate public speaking anxiety. So we begin to think anxious thoughts. We then have anxious emotions, the sensations. The self-image only makes us feel more anxiety, and that creates more physical symptoms. We try to do things to try and control this, but often that might create more anxiety about how that's then coming across. But also it reinforces the belief we need to do these things, otherwise these thoughts and self-image might come true. Now, this is a really complex cycle, and I've simplified it quite a lot just for this example, and we'll go into other areas later on in the course if you're doing the public speaking mini course with me. But this cycle is really common and really normal, and it can be really entrapping because it maintains itself. It's a really vicious cycle. Now, one thing to say here is that I've called behaviors safety behaviors. So if you haven't heard that term before, safety behavior is something we do to prevent a feared outcome. So having water nearby because I'm thirsty isn't a safety behavior. It's just helpful. Having water nearby so that I can drink, so that I don't have to be speaking when I'm drinking because I'm afraid I'm going to stutter, is a safety behavior. It's something I'm doing to prevent something from happening if I can. Now, one quite common safety behavior with public speaking is just to avoid public speaking altogether. But if we can't, then we tend to develop these subtle safety behaviors that we do in the moment to try cope with it. Now, it's important to say that I've focused on anticipatory thoughts of public speaking, but for some people, maybe anticipatory just before they're fine. It's during the situation that they're having the thoughts. So they start speaking and they suddenly think, I'm coming across stupid. They can hear me stuttering. They can tell I'm anxious, and all of these anxious thoughts. And that would then trigger the same cycle. It's just now you're reliving it in front of everyone as well. One other important thing to mention is that the self-image, often, but not always, can sometimes link to a socially traumatic experience. So let's say this one is linked to a traumatic experience of being laughed at in front of a group of people at school. So maybe I'm seeing myself in the same way that I did in that moment. And again, this is something that's stored in the fear brain. We don't really have control whether we want to just get over it or not. The fear brain will have taken these socially traumatic experiences in. Now, for some of us, we're really well aware that that's what we're reliving. And for others, it's more subconscious or it's just not there at all. But I thought it's important to mention that often these things can come from very real situations where we did really feel humiliated or other really difficult emotions. So the first step is to create your own cycle. And then over the week, when you notice any difficulties come up, create another to capture it. So maybe create one now in a situation and think about your cycle in public speaking. If I said you had to suddenly do a presentation now, what immediately would come up? But if you have to do anything like that in the week, create it again. And public speaking isn't just presentations. Public speaking is anything that is in front of people. Are expected to speak in front of a large group of people and live up to some idea of competency. So that could be doing a speech at a wedding. It could be presenting at work. It could be running your tennis club's annual AGM. It really can be anything. I know a lot of people are like, I just want to fix this. I don't want to track things. So why? What's the point of identifying my cycle? And I hear you. When we're struggling, we just want to get to answers. But the reason is understanding your unique cycle is the first step to breaking it, because even though this is a really common experience, we all have slightly different variations of this cycle, and it begins to tell us what our main fears are and what our main behaviors are, and that self-image coming up. And knowing your unique cycle is the first step to breaking it, because if you're here doing the mini workshop, we're going to use different skills to break the cycle, and part of using them means you know exactly what stage of the cycle you're at. So all the worksheets and templates for this will be linked below the video. So take a week to do this or more if you need, whatever it takes for you to get meaningful information. And I look forward to seeing you in module 2, where we begin to break this cycle and begin to develop that confidence you want when you're public speaking. Now, if you're someone who's not on the mini course but have come to this video through YouTube or somewhere else and you're ready to transform social anxiety, including public speaking, into authentic confidence, then if you want to connect, I offer one-to-one therapy and coaching. I have my online course, Overcoming Social Anxiety and Building Confidence, which is a comprehensive social anxiety course. or this mini course on public speaking, of which this is the first module. Or you can follow me on Instagram for free guidance and tips. It's at socially_fearless. I really hope you found this video useful nonetheless, and take care. Bye.